Good evening and welcome to the fourth meeting of fiscal year 2027 for the Milton Planning Board. At this time, I would like to call the meeting to order and begin by introductions of the members and our staff. Hal, if we'd like to start.
Hal Munger, member.
Maggie Oldfield, member.
Sean Fahey, member.
And Cheryl Tagaya, secretary.
And Meredith Hall serving as chair. With us this evening, we have our staff, Avante.
Avante Grady, assistant planning director.
Liz Manning, planning director.
Great, thank you. Administrative items, our next, first of all, our next meeting dates. Hard to believe we're gonna be in September. We have a September 10th and September 24th date scheduled. Is everybody good with those dates? The second and the fourth Thursday of the month? Okay, great. So the next item we have is our, approval of our meeting minutes, I'm sorry. There was a set of minutes that were sent out today by Cheryl. I don't know if the members had a chance to
Yeah.
take a look at those.
August 6th.
August 6th.
Yeah. I'm good with the edits.
I was too.
You're fine.
Agreed. Yep.
And then I'll make a motion to approve the August 6th minutes.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. So approved, thank you. We're all caught up, nice to,
I know, there's a pile
yeah.
to sign.
But that's great, thank you all. And then staff update. What's new? Planning department.
Let's see.
It's been a very busy summer, things don't slow down around here.
It has been busy. Let me pull up the famous matrix.
Also have it here too.
Oh, excellent, thank you. Do you guys want me to put this on the screen, or are people just gonna kind of follow along on their computer, on their screens?
I think putting it up there for
Yeah.
For the public, sure. Let's see.
It is helpful having this, to sort of have eyes on all that's happening.
Right. So, under the, so this is our matrix of planning board and planning department staff projects for the public. We're trying to keep this updated on a monthly basis. So these, anything that's highlighted here in yellow is something that was an update from the July version of this document. So starting out with the first category, which is housing. So on the housing production plan, there have been 3 committee meetings held. The public meeting number 1 is scheduled for September 23rd. We have a quote for translation services has been received. That was added to your folders, I think a day or two ago. So that's coming up later on the agenda. We're doing specific outreach to senior populations. That's underway. And we are working with our GIS manager here in town to get some mapping and some displays for that meeting. Under the Shared Housing Support Office, which is the regional coalition that we're a member of, which helps us to monitor the affordable units and the subsidized housing inventory and various projects like that. That contract expired on 6/30/26, and we've reached out for pricing for continued services. We've also reached out to the folks in Hopkinton, which was the lead community on that shared procurement. They are trying to go back out for RFPs, so I was trying to figure out if I could get sort of like a short-term contract in place with the consultant, just because of the level of 40B activity in town. I didn't want too many months to lapse without having that support available. So working on that. You wanna pick up on the next one?
Sure, yeah, for the open space and rec plan, I'm targeting a September meeting with the Open Space and Rec Planning Committee. I've sent out an email to Craig today, the consultant on the project, just to coordinate a meeting next week, just to kind of look back at our schedule for the remaining deliverables for the plan, and just something that we need to discuss and revisit again, just because some of the items like the inventory, have taken some time. So, but we're gonna discuss and meet next week and hopefully get something kind of agreed upon to where we can submit the plan by the end of the year. Obviously want the town to be able to get that access to those state grant opportunities. So,
And will that meeting be a full committee meeting or just yourself, myself and Craig?
just like
The
us
three of us,
three,
right,
yeah,
until we can-
and Liz if she wants to be part of that too.
Yes, of
Just kind of planning ahead, that would be separate from the meeting I'd still wanna have,
Yeah, 'cause we
with the
should
open
still have
space.
another with maybe a little more notice.
Yeah, absolutely, so, yep.
Great.
And I think the last time we discussed, maybe this board getting a draft of that prior to the end of the year, is that correct?
Yep, it's the intention to like share a draft of the open space and rec plan prior to the public meeting that we would have, the second and last public meeting. So definitely share that with open space and rec committee, with the planning board, just to get any sort of feedback on the plan and its implementation and so on, so.
I have a question. So we received a few follow-up emails after your meeting with the West Milton Neighborhood Association. Will there be any follow-up with them recommended in the plan? I'm not sure how their comments get incorporated, but they obviously express interest in next steps.
Yeah, I believe Craig's been copied on those emails as well, and so their feedback along with the feedback from the other engagements is going to be taken into consideration when thinking about the implementation for the plan. So I have them, I believe Craig also has them on like a list to notify them of any upcoming engagement opportunities, so we definitely want them to be engaged for the public meeting in the fall. And so it's just key to just make sure that we're communicating with them and they know how they can be involved for the rest of the process, so.
And then the plan itself, does it have implementation recommendations like the master plan had or has where?
Yeah, it is, I
Yeah.
think there's a goals section.
Yeah. And does it assign like responsible parties to the implementation recommendation?
I would have to go back and look at the 2002 plan, right? I mean, it's literally from 2002, and I honestly don't know to what extent sort of like the requirements have changed in that very long period of time from kind of the way the towns, what's sort of our baseline is for that. But yeah, I mean, I think that's, if it's not there, then that's an excellent suggestion. We should definitely have like a clear path for prioritization, responsible parties, near term, medium term, long term, sort of similar to what you guys did at the last meeting. And just to follow up on the environmental justice, requirements, my experience with the state funding programs is that, typically, the state is requiring this environmental justice consultation as part of the planning process, and then typically the grant funding that would come out of having an open space and rec plan in place would also, it would be either be, scored higher because you're including that sort of, that component in your grant applications and so I think there's naturally going to be sort of like a tie-in to make sure that those environmental justice communities that have been consulted with, that they continue to be sort of involved and reflected and and that those priorities don't sort of get lost. Yeah.
Okay, so is that it from staff update? Anything?
I wish.
Okay,
I will
that's
go
all
as
right.
fast as I can. You,
No.
you, I think you may have updated them on the climate action plan at the last meeting.
No, I did not. I added this note, just with this update, so, not great news, but wanted to update, for the climate action plan, for the Go One Stop application, we did not receive grant funding for that, so, I've kind of shared that news with the chair and have shared a potential next steps maybe to go from there. They are having a expression of interest process for the next year's application for that same grant. And then another step is like perhaps using the technical assistance opportunity from MAPC as a potential way to partially support. But yeah, obviously here to, answer any questions that Alex has, and if there's any way that planning can help with it, we definitely will, so.
And speaking of that, I was sort of wondering what kind of help the planning board may need from the climate action committee. So one of our goals is to actually move the writing of the plan down. I feel like we've kind of gotten sidetracked a little bit, going for grants, and we haven't actually moved the ball down the field with actually a plan. So at the last meeting, we did talk about zoning, and I was wondering, can, in a future meeting, we talk about that, and what can the climate action committee help with some zoning initiatives? Like, we always refer to the master plan when permits come before us, and we're like, oh, this checks the box on this master plan. So now, what can we write in the climate action plan that would be helpful to us, which would include possibly, low impact design? So I know, like, years ago, when I first got on it, when I think the DPW environmental coordinator, Mira, she did a whole presentation on low impact design for us, but that isn't referred to anywhere, and I can't, even today I was looking for it on the town's website, and I can't even find it. I had to find it in my emails from Tim. So, like, we're trying to find, like, what are the good practice initiatives that can be incorporated into the climate action plan that would be beneficial to us as a committee.
So with that, maybe you can roll that all into an update, like Hal provided on CPC on the Climate Action Planning Committee.
But I also would like it, so your input as well, just to.
I think that Tim Zerwinski included, I'll have to go back and look at this more carefully, but I think he included low impact design components in the rules and regulations, right? Because they're not explicitly in the zoning bylaw, but I believe they're in the rules and regulations for site plan review. So, and I may have in my efforts to be expedient when I first got hired, and I knew you guys had done a new site plan review bylaw, I wanted to make sure that the rules and regs reflected that, very, very carefully and closely. I may have removed those, so those should get added back in. Or they definitely need to be looked at. I don't know how old they are. The other thing that Avanti and I did today actually was we had a really good meeting with Kai Mueller. Yeah? Is that his last? Yeah. Who's the town's energy manager, energy consultant. So we had a long conversation about the consolidated permitting for battery storage. So we wanna make sure that this system that is being contemplated, there's a feasibility study that the town did for a small battery storage over here, adjacent to the fire headquarters. So they're looking for grant funding soon, so there needs to be sort of like a zoning pathway for that. So we do have the language from KP, from Carolyn Murray. So it's kind of like the short-term bylaw, this is what I was short-term rental bylaw, I was trying to explain to him. We still need to figure out within the town who's gonna sort of do what in terms of like the process for reviewing these
I forget what they're called, small energy,
Small cell.
Clean energy facilities.
small clean energy facilities, right. So, so we did, so we've got, so that's on our radar because we, again, if there's an opportunity to bring that, it's already drafted. So if there's an opportunity to bring that forward for, Springtown meeting, but it has to be, again, those conversations about who's doing what, how it's gonna get enforced, and, are the various thresholds and et cetera, is it sufficient, and, yeah.
Was there a
So-
reason why they're looking at this particular site? Is it because of the adjacency to the fire station? Or,
I
that just
don't
seems like
know a
something
lot
that is going
about-
to
I don't,
take up
yeah, go ahead.
more impervious surface for the battery storage facility?
Well, I think, what came out of our meeting was I think one of the churches are looking to do a geothermal, so I don't know if that's
System.
so I don't know if that is, the battery storage is needed for that.
On that location?
No, I think it's for the solar. It would be for the
So
solar array.
solar.
So,
Which they are.
so I think they're at the feasibility stage, right? I think everything is at the feasibility stage. I think they got state funding or some fund, maybe Mass CEC funding for feasibility. And now that that's in place, you move forward to try to get the, the construction funding. So, that was the conversation today, cause again, we don't wanna be the, if they need something in order to move forward for funding, we don't want our process to hold them back. So we're.
What are the size of the, just after the generator, situation? What is the size, and that, it may be a
For
question
that
you don't know.
storage system?
For the storage system that's
It
being
sounded,
evaluated?
according to Kai, he sort of intimated that it was pretty small, right? Now, I don't know a ton about this subject area, so I
Yeah.
can't pretend to say that something that's half the size of this room is what people consider small.
That's
I
what-
don't
yeah.
know. But in terms of, size, I think it was, the sense was it's definitely not, this enormous system by any stretch of the imagination, so. But at any rate, I don't have a lot of detail on that stuff, and I don't really wanna go too far down that road.
Yeah, no, we
because
don't-
know
I
they're
don't
at
wanna
the
spend time on it
feasibility-
till-
The
yeah.
feasibility stage, and I haven't even necessarily seen a lot of detail on the feasibility stuff, cause we just haven't been plugged into it, cause we haven't had the.
Yeah, that could be something that we, look at, maybe review the rules and regs that were in there. And maybe that would be a place to put on our agenda, reviewing and seeing if there's anything else climate related.
My recollection on that presentation that you mentioned, Maggie, was it was part of, I think was called an MSP4, some kind of permit related to the Environmental Protection Agency or the EPA here in Massachusetts. So it seems like the DPW director or the town engineer should at least be familiar with what the requirements of that permit are.
So there is on the town website, cause I came across that is under our, I don't know what part of the website,
Stormwater?
it's under stormwater.
Yeah.
So there is a separate MSP for, there's a whole presentation on that.
Yeah, so that, I
Right.
recall that she said
You seen a lot
at
of
that
those?
presentation that we did need to update the rules and regs and zoning. I just don't remember the details of those. And there's been no follow-up on that, so. But I think
That's
that, that should be added to our list in terms of zoning,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, or rules and
Or
regs.
rules and regs or both.
Rules and regs would be just you guys, a little bit easier,
There's-
a lighter lift.
The rules and regs though, the DPW has had, because we don't have stormwater, I mean, we're not the experts on stormwater, right, so, and then the road cross-section in the rules and regs has a very wide right-of-way with requirements, for granite curbs that we've seen waivers for that a number of times, we've seen waivers for sidewalks.
Yeah.
The right-of-way is too wide, really. There's not, it's just one one requirement, no matter what kind of road it is. So it could be a road that leads to 2 houses and it's the same requirement as a road that would lead to 50 houses. Not that we have a lot of new roads anymore, but we still have some. Yeah. So
Yep,
I
so that
feel
could
like
be-
that's, the town engineer, DPW needs to weigh in on that part of the rules and regs.
Yeah, sure.
So.
Okay, so moving,
Okay,
moving
quickly,
through, I
quickly,
know.
so, cause we're already half hour in, so what else do we wanna talk about? So we obviously know we're doing a zoning hearing tonight. Vision Zero,
Can I just,
oh, yep, go ahead.
the economic development plan,
Yes, oh, actually, I did have something on that,
Okay,
I did
thank
get
you.
something in today. So we reached out to the folks at MAPC and asked them for an update on their pricing. And they had said that they would get something to us, hopefully this week, which they did yesterday, I think it came in
this
yesterday, or this morning, came in this morning. So we will be reviewing that with the town administrator and hopefully have more information at the next meeting.
so we had that joint meeting with the select board and we talked about some scope. I don't know, like, we're getting a cost proposal now on a new scope that no one's at least our board hasn't seen, maybe the select board has seen, or maybe you and Nick have talked about, or.
We gave them the minutes from that joint meeting.
Shared comments anyways from that meeting, so.
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty much driven like directly off of that shared meeting, like, so, no, absolutely, like, I will just figure out, haven't even looked at it. So, once we are able to sit down with Nick, and Cody and come up with a, kind of next steps, then I'm sure he's gonna wanna share, he will wanna be sharing that out. I just haven't even had a chance to look at it yet.
Because I do feel as if we left that meeting thinking there would be some joint follow-up before that
Yeah.
advance. At least
So
That
another
was my
joint
understanding.
meeting?
following that joint meeting, I felt as if,
Subsequent joint.
Another joint
Yes.
meeting before the scope is finalized,
to have agreement on that final scope.
but not necessarily another joint meeting?
It might not require it.
Right, it may not require the meeting, but.
If we see it
Okay.
and we have a chance to comment on it, that may be all we really need.
that might be more efficient, send it to both boards.
Yep.
Before it's finalized, but you and Nick and Avante. Okay.
Alright.
Because we said at prior meetings, we were gonna hold off on certain things until the economic development plan was done. And we wanna make sure that it's actually going to be informative to those things, to those items that we discussed.
It's moving, maybe slower than we all want, but it's moving. Alright, so, let's see, zoning and planning, economic development plan, yes, sorry, I see that we did have an update there. So, traffic transportation, I know you folks received some additional information on the Vision Zero efforts at the last meeting. And I know that Avante followed up with the MPO about sharing that information more widely. There was a traffic commission meeting was held, after your last meeting. Avante attended that in my place. I'm more than happy to fill you in on more specifics on that agenda, if anyone's interested, happy to do that. There is a monthly check-in meeting on the traffic calming master plan with Tool Design. That is scheduled for next week, for September 3rd, so we'll have some information coming out of that meeting, some update for you folks at your meeting on the 10th. We followed up with the folks at MAPC about the Boston to Blue Hills, and they are expecting their final report soon. I know that they shared traffic data out of that project for the traffic calming master plan. So affordable housing compliance, we're working with 440 Granite Ave to receive the final legal documentation that's required to move the regulatory agreement forward for the affordable units there, so that is ongoing. We're also following up with the engineering folks on the stormwater operations and management. That is all needs to be incorporated in the master deed for the condo owners there, so we're following up on that. At the Trustlow, we reviewed and approved the building signage per the waiver in the comprehensive permit. There was language in the comprehensive permit from the zoning board that said that the planning director shall approve the the signage. So what I did was I reached out to the chair of the sign review committee and had a consultation with him. He made some good comments and recommendations, which they accepted, so fingers crossed. It's pretty minimal in terms of signage, given the residential setting. 40 access, so we approved the building permit in consultation with the zoning board, based on the regulatory agreement, the status of the regulatory agreement, and the site, and we received a site stabilization bond of $75,000. That was received, last week, I think, before we signed off. Development project review, we had our monthly meeting. Gardner School, so, Avante's really kind of taken the lead on that. I know he did a walkthrough yesterday with the engineering department. But they are definitely looking to get their certificate of occupancy in the next couple of weeks, if not sooner. But everything from the planning side, as far as we are concerned, has been satisfied.
There's a couple things left. They still need to add the trees that the abutters requested, just to add that screening. I believe that'll happen within a week or so. And then the lighting is still not what it shows quite on the plan. There's more lighting that shows on the building. I didn't quite see that on my site walk earlier this week, so
It hasn't been installed yet?
yeah, just in terms of like sconces around the building.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it just doesn't match what's on the plan, so
Is it more or less
it's less.
than what's on the plan? It's less than what's on the plan. Okay, that's better.
Yeah,
But
that's
yeah, but they shared that they like provide lighting at areas
Yeah.
of egress, so I mean,
Yeah.
hopefully at a
Okay.
minimum, they're addressing like safety in terms of like accessibility, but definitely something I wanted to look at together with you,
Yeah,
so.
good, awesome.
And they were leaving lights on, like all night, that was probably during periods of construction or, you know, I think that was one of the concerns of the neighbor, the abutter. And I don't know if that was addressed.
Yeah, I
That
don't,
was,
mentioned.
right?
yeah,
Not addressed, right?
yeah, I think so, I don't think
Yeah.
that's happening anymore,
Yeah,
along with
yeah,
the
yeah.
parking on
The
the,
timing.
on the road.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
so,
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, they were very responsive on the additional screening for the butters and the timing and enforcing the no parking on Blue Hill, out on the road next to the new sidewalk. So with 2 Elliott, so we also completed the final sign off for that, and with the signage and also for their signage permits as well. We're working with the owners at 152 Robbins, which is the farm stand that you folks approved, I think, 2 years ago. I wanna say it was in I think it might have actually been as far back as 2023. So there were some modifications there, so we were asking them to come back and bring a new application in front of the board. So probably see that hopefully in the next couple of weeks, if we can get the review coordinated. And so we're being asked to review the comprehensive permit for, the comprehensive permit for the, over at 582 Blue Hill Ave. The mansion house phase is now in front, has been submitted to the building department, so that's the next set of plans we're gonna have to roll out. And then the memory care, there's been a tremendous amount of work, as they get ready. They're looking to mobilize at the end of September, so there's a lot happening there, but that'll be on the agenda on the 10th. So we'll have a lot more information for you guys on the 10th on that one.
Liz, on 152 Robbins, there's a lot of questions in the public about how a business like that can be located there. And it had to do with an interpretation by the building commissioner back then in terms of it being a protected use in terms of agriculture. So I think it would be good to do a refresher if this is coming back before the board about that use.
I
Because
think it's on the town, I think it's actually, that legal opinion is actually on.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it wasn't just
It's
the
on the
building
website.
commissioner, it came from town council.
Yeah, I think they
Okay.
gave a legal, and I think it was filed as part of the package that's on the website for the project.
Okay, I
So-
just think it would be good for us to Can we just give like a quick or a short synopsis of that?
I'd appreciate that.
Right.
I would appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, at the meeting, before that is presented as, here's what the item before us that particular night is. Because I know people, I've seen a lot of people question that.
Yeah, so it.
Are they questioning the use though? I don't think they're questioning the use.
Some, yes,
I think they're more questioning the operators.
I understand it's both, but
Yeah.
I have seen people question the use, yeah.
Okay, so, and then I think Monty had gone ahead and just, and slotted in these different prioritizations here on the, for the zoning,
Right.
medium, long, and near, based on your conversations last month.
This for the 10th, for the memory care
Yeah.
project, what information will be before us?
So, I would categorize it as ministerial. It's essentially, in order for them to, the building itself is still being reviewed by the town. And what they would like to do is they would like to start some of the site work, and they need to demolish some of the buildings that are, there's a barn and there's a house, and I think there's a shed, and I wanna say there might be like 4 buildings, maybe 3. So in order, because the special permit is worded that no trees can be removed and no site work can take place prior to a building permit, the request for the modification is, can the site work proceed with a demo permit while the review of the building permit continues on, so that they're able to capture the fall for the, to mobilize and to get some of the, you know, the stuff that they need to do in terms of, you know, for the site based on the requirements from the Concom with the, you know, there's culverts and wetland crossings and wetlands replication. It's very complicated, I'm sure you guys know. You guys are all part of the permitting process. So I think they wanna try to get as much of that as they can, you know, kind of before the snow flies.
Did they apply for a foundation permit?
So they've applied for demo. Yeah,
And they-
they've applied for demo
And
permit.
they're applying, well, if the building department's reviewing the drawings, does that mean that they've applied for a building permit?
Yes,
They have, but they didn't apply for a foundation permit as a component of the building permit.
I honestly, I don't know if it was sort of rolled together. I'm not 100% on that. I just know for sure that they're looking for the demo permit, like, near term, so that they're able to get on the site and they're able to take the buildings down and to start some of the site work. That's my understanding.
Just
So,
to
go ahead,
maybe
go
for
ahead.
the benefit of for that discussion on the 10th.
Mm-hmm.
I would feel better considering the demo permit if they had applied for a foundation permit and it had been issued.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But, you know,
Does Milton generally issue foundation permits separate from the overall building permit?
they will, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't tell you what Michael's, policy
Okay.
is on that, but it's not unusual to get a foundation permit. Oftentimes a foundation permit's issued for the very reason that they're looking for, right? Just because they don't have enough time to get through all the drawings. But they're satisfied that the building meets the special permit requirements. So it would be easier for us to consider a demo permit if Michael had issued a foundation permit, right? But if Michael's hasn't issued anything, it's hard for the board to, I think it's hard for the board, it might be hard for me, maybe it's not hard for you guys, but to say, yeah, no problem, go for it, here's a demo permit, take the trees down and start altering the site,
Well,
My
it
understanding
would be
is they applied
subject
for
to,
that building permit 6 months ago.
Yeah.
info I don't have.
I do.
How do you know 6 months ago?
I asked.
Okay. Well,
and,
maybe they should consider applying for a foundation permit.
Yeah, so the building department's been understaffed. I was in there the other day and they haven't had a secretary, Walter White retired.
Yeah.
So they've so everything is all backlogged, so, I think they're all working as hard as they can and in good faith, and I don't think that, they're intentionally holding anything up.
Sure,
And
well,
with all the 40B projects coming online at one time,
Yeah.
it's a massive amount of work for that department.
Michael, he should make whatever decision, he will make whatever decisions he wants to make. He may not want to issue a foundation permit, but if an applicant applies for it, it might be something he might consider.
That's a good,
Might
Yeah,
work for
good
everybody.
recommendation.
Might take some of the pressure off Michael, and it might afford the applicant an opportunity to get moving. And it might afford us an opportunity to be in a better position to, to amend and give a demo permit before a building permit. Full.
Yeah, my plan is to be on the site next week with the arborist and to be digging in on the tree protection plan before the next meeting, so.
good. Okay,
I had a few things,
Devante.
sorry. I had reached out about something separate about some technology stuff, and you suggested that there's a administrative admin coming on board soon, or we're looking for one?
Hopefully, I meant to follow up with Carla. I believe that references are being checked.
Okay.
We had an interview 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, something like that.
I think 2 weeks ago.
Maybe 2 weeks ago, yeah, and I believe references are being checked. So,
So is that,
it's been a long time.
is that the 19 and a half hours, is that what you would,
Yes.
okay.
Sorry,
it's all right,
just
go
wrote
ahead.
down a few notes.
Yeah,
The Adams Street project, the Mass Works, I know that you had been in some conversation with them, and they suggested they were gonna delay until September for the traffic readings and the counts. But also there was a planned early fall, which we're getting close to that, outreach. I didn't know if you had any more information, or if not, you would mind trying to get that information so I could share that with the neighborhood association. It'd be great.
Yeah, I can definitely look into it.
I'm happy to do it too, if I'm not sure the right person to reach out to, or if it's better to go through you, but.
Yeah, I can follow up on it. Yeah, I've been already having conversations with DPW, so I can find that out.
Okay,
Just to share too, that the one of the project managers, the assistant town engineer has accepted a new job in a different community. So I think his last day is tomorrow. Yeah. So, but we'll definitely, just so you know, just so you have that information. But we'll continue to connect and get the info.
I see that one of the things on the matrix is the East Milton Square design guidelines, and it says formal vote to adopt in summer 2026.
that's, I wouldn't put that on
Okay,
our,
okay.
I was actually gonna
Okay.
put it on this agenda, and it's, when Liz arrived, she said, I know you you sort of adopted them, but there was never a formal vote.
Okay.
When we were doing the East Milton overlay, we started with the design guidelines first, and then we did the zoning, so we moved into that. We had sort of said, yes, this is great, then we did, and we put the zoning language forward, but we never had a formal vote on that.
Gotcha,
That
okay.
Liz, Liz could find in the minutes, so we thought just for housekeeping, let's just have that formal vote, so.
Okay.
So we'll have those, we can send out those design guidelines for you to review and,
Definitely.
if anyone wants to look at them again.
Good.
But it wasn't that long ago, so it was,
Yeah.
but we should do that.
And then the last one I had on my list, apologies, I know it's not on the overall agenda, but the short-term rentals, at the last meeting, we discussed a few things. We do, again, I know this because I sent you an email, any update on the all-staff meeting, or when you think that might be happening?
Nick was on vacation this week, so I'm just gonna do what I've been doing and just follow up next week. I'm just gonna keep trying to get that meeting, to happen.
Okay, and then any subsequent public forum that we discussed that we thought might be mid-September is gonna be pushed back until that meeting happens, is that?
I mean, I would say that it would make more sense.
Yep.
To have that meeting first, for sure.
Yeah.
I do feel, based on, the three sort of documents that we now have, right? So we've got a zoning document, and we've got a regulation document, and then, I forget what the third piece of this.
General, a very small zoning and
Small
guidelines.
So,
zoning.
right, so I feel like, we can sit down and we hopefully can have a pretty efficient conversation
Okay.
about, kind of path, right? So, but it's, again, it's still the same questions of, who's gonna be running the show and who's gonna enforce and, that's kind of where things are at.
So, another question is a follow-on, I think, to how we discussed in the short-term rental with, Town Council Carolyn Murray about, a potential for, a stabilization fund. And she was going to look into that, I believe.
Okay.
And I thought, I had heard in a conversation with one of the members of the Board of Health that I had, that is something of concern to the health department in
Okay.
terms of like how, just
staffing?
the staffing, and I'm sure it would be for the building department. So this fund, a stabilization fund, where the funds, from the fees could be put into that and used to augment the or to offset the cost in those departments, I think is going to be really important for that all staff, or that joint staff meeting. So if Carolyn has that information, I think,
Yeah,
at least you can have that for your meeting,
okay,
and
yeah,
then we can discuss it when you're ready.
okay.
And then one thing else, I've been on the website now looking for the projects for the CPC and I haven't been able to find it. Is there any way that you could send us all the projects being
The
considered?
applications,
Yeah,
They're not on the
Yeah.
website?
yeah, I couldn't find them,
yeah. Should be, yeah,
yeah,
Yep.
okay.
I think I reached out to, there's a new admin.
there is, yeah.
Yeah, so and she actually reached out to me and asked to come in because I had done that job in Braintree. But we haven't connected yet.
Yeah.
So if I connect with her in the next, week or two, I
Yeah.
can try to get, whatever, if but that will be happening in the next couple of weeks too, so.
Okay,
So maybe I didn't see it,
I'll send it to you.
but.
All right. All right, so we can now move to public comment. If there's anyone here who would like to speak on anything that's not on the agenda, either in person or on Zoom, you can raise your hand if you're on Zoom. Anyone here like to speak on anything? Nope, not at this time.
I think there's
Share.
one,
Is there a hand up on Zoom?
I think so. Let's see. Oh. Stop share.
Thought I already clicked that.
And then I
Thank
think
you.
Kathleen Meltzer.
Oh, good, okay, thanks.
Great, so we do have someone.
Okay, so
Good evening.
Good evening.
It's Kathleen O'Donnell from the Board of Appeals. And I just wanted to let you know that we are scheduling a meeting on October 14th with Carolyn Murray, who will be going over the recent changes to the zoning the zoning statute with regards to variances, et cetera. Which you might find helpful to attend. There is also, I don't know whether she will be discussing them, but there are changes in the economic development bill that will impact site plan review, institute a requirement for training sessions, et cetera. And I don't know that that bill will be passed by October 14th, but that's something that she might have on her radar as well. So just wanted to let you know that that was happening.
Great, thank you very much, that's great.
Kathleen, do you know what time that is?
7 o'clock.
Thank you.
I saw that,
Zoom.
there was an email.
Is it a Zoom meeting?
Kathleen, is it a Zoom?
I don't think we're planning on doing it on Zoom. I think it's I think we probably have it in person.
I'll definitely be there, so that's good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, we can move to item number 4, our zoning hearing, zoning bylaw amendment, chapter 275, section 3.25, MBTA communities, multifamily overlay district, paragraph 3. Can we pull that up?
Sure.
It's a very small change, but important that people can see it.
Right. Okay. Screen. How's that? Good?
That's great. And if you wanna just explain, Liz, or just introduce this?
Sure, happy to do it.
Opposed.
So the town undertook a economic feasibility analysis process and retained Metropolitan Area Planning Council to do that work. That work was conducted, I believe, it was concluded in early 2026. I feel like they concluded probably around January, February of 2026. And essentially, it was an analysis to demonstrate to the state that if the town required additional affordable units over this 10%, which is the current language, and increasing that to 15%, the town had to demonstrate through this feasibility analysis that would not cause fiscal harm to developers of these projects. So that analysis was submitted to MAPC's. Conclusion was that yes, indeed, this market could support a 15% requirement for affordable units, and that analysis was submitted to the state, EOHLC, and they determined, I think it was late July, there's a letter from the agency in your packet. They agreed with the analysis and are allowing the town to increase the affordable requirement from 10 to 15%. So what this zoning bylaw amendment does is it strikes the language in 275, section 3.25, subpart P, subparagraph P3. It strikes the language if EOHLC determines in writing, which they have, and that letter is in your packet, that the town has not shown the 15% requirement to be feasible, not fewer than 10% of the dwelling units in any development containing 10 or more units shall be affordable housing units available to households earning income up to 80% of AMI. So now I just realized what I just said, that's confusing. But that language has been struck because the town has demonstrated that the 15% requirement is feasible. So this and this was, as you know, this was vetted through Carolyn Murray at KP Law. She agrees with the way this was structured, the language is structured, and I know that the town administrator, Nick Milano, had done some additional follow-up with EOHLC regarding, changes to, sort of, if there were conditions changed, if there was some change in the environment or what have you, or changes in the state requirements, would this need to be amended? And they said their opinion is that once they've made this determination, it's a final determination. So that was my understanding of that exchange that he had with the folks at the state agency. So that is the summary of that. I don't know if anyone has any questions.
So maybe what we should do is either zoom in on that paragraph or
Okay.
just
Yeah.
read that portion of the bylaw as it exists without those
So just the,
Yeah, just
without the strikeout?
Yeah, just so people
Sure.
who might be watching understand now what's required.
Sure. So provision of affordable housing in any development containing 8 or more units, not fewer than 15% of housing units constructed shall be affordable housing units. For purposes of calculating the number of affordable housing units required within a development project, a fractional unit shall be rounded up or down to the nearest whole number. The affordable units shall be available to households earning up to 80% of the AMI. So that language is already in the bylaw, it is not being changed. And that is the requirement, so what's been struck is that sentence there.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is, nothing has changed. The language that's being struck was provisional language that was included in the event that the 15% would be determined not to be possible.
Right.
So it was just conditional language that's now being removed. There really isn't any change at all now that we have confirmation that 15% is acceptable to the OHLC.
Just a cleanup, the way I see it.
So back to, like, you said that the final determination is forever and ever. Is anything really forever and ever?
I mean, look at the changes that have been made
Right.
to the State Zoning Act in the last, it's,
So it's really not
It's-
forever and ever?
well, that is our, to the best of our ability to understand sort of, what the town's, kind of, I don't know, I don't wanna say exposure, but like what the sort of implications could be, right? There's no plan to sort of revisit these feasibility analyses. That's my understanding, but I can't say anything beyond that.
Yeah, because am I correct in my understanding that Boston, their affordable percentage is at like 17 or 20%?
I think I've heard a lot of conversation about revisiting that.
Correct, which I have
Yeah.
too. So my concern always has been, we should always be what Boston, we should not be anything less than what Boston is. We should always match that, because if it can be met in Boston, we abut Boston. So that's why I would,
This puts us closer.
yeah, so I would like, so the forever and ever is just a concern.
Boston's talking about or considering some
Reducing.
Some are considering reducing it
Correct, yep.
lower
and-
than 10% to spur construction, because projects have been approved but are not proceeding into construction.
Yeah, but then I also think if they're going to do that, then they have to revisit the 40B law too. They can't,
See, that's where Boston's not subject to that, so
Right,
it's,
correct.
Boston has
yeah,
not probably our best comparison, but it's informative, but probably not our best.
Great. So anyone from the public, now is the time to speak. If there's no other questions by the board, any hands up, anyone on Zoom who would like to speak on this housekeeping article?
Not seeing any hands.
Okay. So with that, I would entertain a vote to move this forward to our fall town meeting.
Should we close the public hearing?
Oh, sorry,
first?
close the a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
second,
All in favor?
Aye.
And then a vote to support to send this article to the fall town meeting.
I'll make that
That was the
motion.
language written.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. Okay, thank you. Now item 5, Brook Road overlay zoning district. There is a current zoning district that exists, but it is now also, we have zoned it under our MBTA zoning. So Cheryl at the last meeting, Liz wasn't here, so I just asked Cheryl to maybe talk, touch base with Liz, give her the background on what you were doing. This has been a site that has really been an eyesore to the town and has just stalled. There was some zoning effort that had been put into this area and was hoping a while ago that a project would go forth, but one of the properties has now been sold, so it's,
Yeah, so with that, the Brook Road overlay,
you want me to share anything?
Sure. You know, if you wanted to share, the map, so we
Okay.
can see where.
The location that we're looking at.
Yeah, the location.
The one that was in the.
Was
one
the
that in
Knights of
the,
Columbus.
for today, right? The
for
one that
those.
Alan sent over,
Yeah, you could probably share that one.
that one, okay.
Aerial.
There was the map that we adopted long after
yeah.
the district was established was,
Okay.
I think you could use,
It's a
yeah.
JPEG,
That's what's in the
Yeah.
folder,
Yeah.
that one.
yeah, I've got it, let me just make sure I can.
While you're pulling it up, so 9 Thatcher is, as you said, Meredith, the property has been vacant for a long time. It was one of the reasons the overlay was, put forth by the planning board years ago. And it has requirements that really required a consolidation or an acquisition of multiple parcels, which, there's a parcel that is on Laurel Road, which is on the right side of the map. And that was vacant at the time as well, and that was sold separately and renovated completely. So in the meantime, the property in the center has stayed vacant. That property by itself doesn't qualify for the Brook Road overlay in 2 ways. It doesn't have the minimum lot size and it doesn't have the minimum frontage. So that's what I put in that chart that I shared last week. The minimum lot size to use the Brook Road overlay is 20,000 square feet, whereas 9 Thatcher is 16,665 square feet. And the Brook Road overlay requires a minimum frontage of 150 feet, and 9 Thatcher has 75 feet. So, I'm sorry, 66 feet. So, the property owner can't use that without a variance or a change in the zoning. So then, if we look at the newer overlay, the MBTA communities, it's the Blue Hills Parkway sub-district. And that allows multifamily. So go back to the Brook Road, that allows townhouses, 2-bedroom townhouses, and it requires a minimum of 2 parking spaces per unit. So it only has setbacks of 10 feet on all sides, so front, rear, and side. So those are the things, the height is 2.5 stories or 35 feet. So those are all the determinants of what can be built there
For the overlay,
for the
the
Brook Road overlay.
Yeah.
So if we go to the MBTA Communities Blue Hills Parkway, multifamily's allowed, so it's not restricted to townhouse. Sorry, I'm gonna go back one more to the Brook Road. It allows 6 units, so 6 townhouse units with 2 bedrooms. Whereas the MBTA
that
overlay.
with both parcels is 6 units. Both parcels, right, cause you need the
Yes.
20,000?
Yes.
Yeah, so the 6 would be if you had that second parcel.
Well-
Or not, I don't know.
I don't think they're necessarily, I see
Okay.
what you mean, but I don't think it's, if you change the minimum lot size or the frontage, then you could still do 6 unless you change the 6, right?
Yeah. I don't know, I just don't know if you have the lot, I just didn't know if I didn't know if the 6 was generated off the 20,000. Is it a multiple of the 20,000?
I don't think it's in the zoning that way.
Okay. Okay.
On the Parkway, the MBTA communities, it's 30 units an acre. So if you take, this is some percentage of an acre, so you do the math and you come out with 11.5 units by math are allowed. And the parking is a maximum of 1 per unit with no minimum. The minimum lot size is 6,000, so this parcel would qualify. The minimum frontage is 50 feet, so it qualifies. And then it has setbacks of 20 feet for the front and the rear, and 10 on the side, or a total of 20, which 5, minimum of 5 on one side and 15 on the other. It has FAR restrictions, which the Brook Road doesn't, which is 0.5. So that, you take the lot area times 0.5 to get your maximum square footage that you can build. So here it would be 8,328 square feet. So 11 units with 8,000 would be for some pretty small units. It might be possible, but it probably doesn't really mean you would be able to do 11 and a half units here. So that might be one of the controlling standards here. The other that might control some is there's a 50% open space requirement in the Parkway zoning, whereas in the Brook Road overlay it was 30%. In both cases, 2.5 stories and 35 feet. So it seemed to me we maybe want to work, we talked about this a little bit, I think I suggested, let's see what the owner is running into as a problem for not being able to put forth something, and let's see if we might need or want to modify the zoning. And if not modify the zoning, might suggest to them that they go to the Board of Appeal to look for a variance. So do we have guests here on the Zoom tonight or in the room?
I think I
Related to
saw,
this
I think I saw,
property.
I think I saw Marion
Mary
McGettrick.
McKettrick, okay.
Yep.
Somebody's.
So before
Oh,
we
good,
start
thank you.
all that, so I just have a question just about process. This seems like different than our normal process. So is this gonna be the new norm, that the planning board's gonna go around town and looking at different parcels of land, and then it's up to us to come up with a plan so my understanding is usually how it's always been, you're a property owner, you wanna do something with your property, and then you go to your neighbors, you have a discussion with your neighbors, you kind of present a preliminary plan. You say, this is my preliminary plan, what are your thoughts? And then you get buy-in or not buy-in from the neighbors, and you have a couple renditions of your plan. And then you take the next step and make it a little bit more formal. And then you might float it by some town staff to get some input. And then you tighten up the language, and then you come to a board, either a planning board or a ZBA. So to me, this process just seems entirely different than we've ever done before. So I'm hesitant to go down that process path if is this gonna be our new, because then we're gonna be undertaking a lot of work, which is different than what we've always done.
So we said at our last meeting that we were going to prioritize, and the first tier priority was the Brook Road overlay and this property, because it's been vacant for so long and neighbors have been concerned, and I've heard that the Board of Health has got it on an upcoming agenda to condemn the building and the property.
And I'm not
So
against.
it's a blight.
Yeah, so I 100% agree. I think it's a blight. I think it's been going on for too long. I think the neighbors deserve more. And I think it should be developed. So I'm not against it, but I'm just, it's just for process, question, that if this is the way that the new norm is gonna be, I just would like to know that.
I don't know
So
that it's
just
always
to,
in
so just
the
to back up, so the owner and the architect did reach out to Liz, and Liz invited me to attend a meeting, and it just, looking to do 7 townhomes, which was just, it would not have worked for under the MBTA zoning. So they were gonna then go back, so they did reach, like, they're trying to be proactive, so that was the first step. And I think they're looking for guidance on, do we wanna hold to what our, do we want to make any recommendations that they go to the ZBA? So wanted just to get our advice at this
Have they
point.
talked to the neighbors yet to see what they want?
I don't know.
So that, if we could just stay here and
Yep.
just talk a little bit, and then maybe I'd like to get a better understanding too, because this predates my involvement. This goes back to Brook Road Overlay District 2018, so it's a while ago. But who are is there one owner of all the parcels?
I haven't met the owner, so I.
There's only
Is-
one
is-
parcel now. It's
There's
only one parcel now.
So,
it's-
so.
There's two
three-
parcels in the overlay,
Yeah,
but as Cheryl said,
Yeah.
the second
Owner.
parcel, which has frontage on Laurel, was purchased and improved, correct?
right.
Yeah, since 2018. So,
By the people that own.
I don't know, I mean,
By
the
Maybe
only.
Marion could help, we could just ask Marion to come.
Before we go to
Yeah.
Marion, there are three numbers on that aerial plan. 3 Laurel is definitely one, but there's number 9 and number 5, right? The buildings have different numbers on that aerial.
Yep,
Yes.
yeah,
So-
one's a residence and one is the
There's two
VFW
buildings.
hall
There's
or
two
something.
buildings.
Yeah, there are two buildings there.
So on that parcel where both number 5 and number 9 are, is that one owner that we know of?
I would have to, I'd have to
Okay.
look at it.
I could look it up.
It shows as one land parcel,
Shows as
that's
one
why.
land parcel,
So at least this shows it as one land parcel. Okay.
When the zoning was written, if that was 8 years ago, I was on the board.
It says
And
2018. So, yeah.
so I was on the board and I remember the discussion. And I think there was some consideration that, just zoning for one parcel could be considered spot zoning. I think 2 parcels were combined, but the,
2 parcels is not spot zoning,
I,
what a reach.
I'm not gonna comment too much on that, my memory isn't that strong on that component of it. But, there was a hope that there would be, a development here, so that would take care of the blight. And I think there was, I've heard from a lot of people, and I think we've heard too. That there's concern about this property, and, I said, Maggie, whether it sets a new kind of approach, I think we should be open to hearing from property owners about where our zoning can be improved.
And I agree with
And
that.
that doesn't mean we have to change it, but I think we should be open to having conversations. And the things that we put in place, if they're not used, we should try and understand why they're not used. I've said this about Milton Village, and, I would say it about condo conversion on certain properties, and even our cluster bylaw was modified as a result of not being used, so
And I will say that there is other history of this. When Alex was chair, and they really worked to carve Walcott Woods. That zoning was created for that site. The Swift Hat Shop zoning was created for that specific site to enable something to happen on that project.
But I guess the question is, were those zoning efforts done collaboratively with somebody who wanted to develop it? Because if this
Yes.
was done in 2018, why didn't it happen?
yeah, I don't know.
So it may go right back to
Right.
where you are. The zoning was created by the planning board, but if ultimately nothing happened because there wasn't an interested private party that was going to follow through and build what was zoned, right?
It was intended, yeah, because I know Alex thought Michael Roberts was gonna go forward once he could do more with that site, and he just didn't.
Was he the
Yes.
owner?
Of the Swift Hat Shop.
Not of
okay, I'm
this.
So there's been different
But
owners.
this, yeah,
So this
so
one, I
that's
don't
my,
know.
so that's my concern, is if you look back at the history of the efforts that have gone in by staff and by board members and town meeting, and everyone's time and attorney's fees and engineering fees and all of that, it's great effort. And then nothing gets done. So I understand the whole, people are critical of how Milton has always done things by project. So I understand that, but this is an example of why things are done project by project, so we don't waste staff time, board members' time, attorneys' fees and so that's just my concern. And again, I wanna see something happen. I think this is a great location. But I don't wanna put all the effort in. I would think that the property owner would at least come forward, identify
So.
to us, to the planning board.
Yeah, so to that,
Yeah.
I reached out to Marion and said, Marion, the board has been talking about zoning initiatives, and we're going to be talking about the Brook Road overlay on Thursday, and so she said she would like to attend, and she would asked the property owner if they wanted to attend the meeting, and I reached out to Meredith about having them be able to speak and their architect. And since it's not a design proposal, it's not an agenda item, just the zoning, Meredith and I had talked about they should focus on the zoning. And so they are here and willing to talk to us about the zoning, which I thought it would be helpful to us to try and think about. We said it's a priority, but working with the property owner is one of the best ways to kind of figure out a way to move forward, I think. And if we decide we're not going to work on zoning, at least they know their next path might be the Board of Appeal. So,
And I would think that they at least should have worked with the neighborhood. So why spend all this effort if the neighbors are like, yeah, we don't want townhouses, we want commercial,
well, townhouses they can do.
They can do, yeah.
or whatever, I'm just saying.
And I will say that what I recall from this, I was not on the board, but there was a plan in place, the zoning was in place and passed. There was a plan in place and the neighbors pushed back. So it was the neighbors and so it didn't go forward. I don't know what happened there.
Even when zoning was passed for it?
No, I think
so.
what happened was there was a request for variance first. That was denied,
Maybe that's
and then we did the zoning, because this is otherwise zoned to residency. And, it's just not, as we can see, someone's not building a single-family home on this property. So
But
it's.
they could.
They could, but it's been a long time,
Yeah.
probably at least 10 years of a vacant building. And I haven't heard people, if the zoning passed, so residents who live nearby had opportunity to speak to town meeting and town meeting members, right? So, 6 units was what's contemplated in that zoning. The MBTA communities passed, and it's included here, which allows more units depending upon the size. And their program, if they want, I think they could probably design something to fit the MBTA zoning, but they might have to think about what their program is for that. So what if they want to come to us and say, we have a little different idea, it's somewhere in between these two zoning overlays that are present here. I thought we should hear it, and we can still discuss, what we think is a best approach, but I did think the first thing for us to understand is what are the options here? What are our zoning options? And since, do you have that chart? Can you just put the chart up? I read through the numbers.
I've got 2 people with their hands raised. I've
Okay.
got Marion McGettrick and I have Dennis Greenwood from Sousa Design.
Okay, great.
So if you want me to allow either of them to talk, or do you wanna look at
Well, I
your
just
thing
thought maybe
first?
just put that chart up first,
Okay.
because it might be helpful for them in the discussion as well, like
Okay.
some of these zoning parameters.
It is one owner, based upon GIS.
I think so. Do they have 3 Laurel as well, or just
So
divide
that was
it
that
when they have
PDF
5 and 9?
I sent to you for the last
So
meeting,
that,
so
that
for like
means
3
that
weeks ago.
16,000 would be
Just gonna
thereabouts.
open it up, I thought I had it open already. The last meeting where we had that PDF, and I said there's other properties around this, which are also on the MBTA overlays. None of them are single family, and they're all zoned single family. So this is one of those things where the uses have existed, pre-existing non-conforming, really, because the single family overlay, the single family came later, after they were built. So that's the chart that we looked at our last meeting, briefly. But I just put those addresses down at the bottom, those are in the Blue Hills Parkway.
Yeah.
And are, right around this parcel, but again, they're not single family, but they're all zoned single family. So you can see the setback requirements are quite a bit different for the overlay. And let's say the Brook Road overlay versus the MBTA communities overlay. And having an FAR requirement and open space requirements that are different. Once you start to lay out a site, you might start to see which of these is controlling what you can do and which of these you know, maybe you would want to see if you could get some relief on. So that's where the architect and engineer, once they start looking at it, would have some feedback. And, I mean, otherwise, we do test fits of these zonings we've done for some. I don't think test fits were done necessarily for this parcel.
Did you create this?
I did.
So is the reason you have the 20,000 minimum lot size in red and the 150 because that's what they
Because they're not, they can't meet
Can't meet
that.
that.
They-
that.
they-
You can't,
yeah,
yeah.
so they're not eligible to use that zoning because of that. And I did it for even the RC, the underlying, it doesn't have the frontage either.
Yeah.
So they, you know, they really can't use those, they're really, the only one that they could use right now is the MBTA overlay. And I guess I added Blue Hills Parkway to that's the sub-district, which just doesn't show here, but I was looking at one, I guess I didn't update for you.
We all thought it was a good place for MBTA overlay. When
Right.
we were going through our MBTA discussion, I don't think anybody said it was not a good location.
And I think the 0.5 is the 0.5 like the most conservative of the FARs? I feel like some of the other FARs are like 1.0 and 1.5
Some are higher,
and
right? 0.5, I think, is one
it's
of the.
0.5, right, Elliot's probably 0.5. My guess is that that FAR is probably the ones that are mostly, single-family houses.
So, I think it would be helpful to hear from Marion and from.
Yep. And she's representing the property owner.
Okay, let's go here.
And I think the architect
Is also, yeah.
We'll start with Marion.
had a very attractive townhome design.
Marion, I unmuted you.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, because the screen sharing, which is useful, I couldn't tell. Okay, thank you, I'm Mary McKettrick. The property is owned by an LLC, then it has management. One of the managers, Eddie Byrne, B-Y-R-N-E, he is here at this meeting as well, I believe. But the architect that they've been trying to work with on some concept ideas is Dennis Greenwood. So when I was told that this would, that the Brook Road overlay was going to be on the agenda tonight, and thank you for letting me know about that because I haven't been following too closely. You're doing so many different things. I thought that they should come to the meeting and listen, and we might be able to provide some information. Just for background, since at least 2014, this site, the lot that we're talking about here, not the has been owned by the same LLC. And that was after the hall was sold and no longer going to be for that purpose and so forth. They just bought the lot. The first attempt, and I did not represent them, I have not represented them for any application. It came to me maybe last year just saying, we're trying to work on what we could possibly do here. What about what's going to happen with MBTA zoning? Is it going to pass? It was still up in the air at the time. So off and on, I've tried to work with them to see what might be possible. So I want to provide, though, a little more background on what happened. In 2014, with a different attorney, they did go to the owners did go to the Board of Appeals. I'm not sure what the size of their proposal was. I know it wasn't huge. It was some multi-unit proposal. And the board refused to approve it because there were a couple of neighbors who were opposed. The next thing that happened, the planning board started to look at the site and rather quickly came up with a zoning overlay proposal, and there was a meeting at Tucker School. I live in this neighborhood. I attended the meeting. It was very well attended, and there was a great deal of support for getting something done at the site, and there was support for the zoning overlay concept. It passed, to my recollection, with no great difficulty at town meeting. And then, as you know, nothing has happened. One reason nothing has happened is that the second lot was never owned by the people who own this lot. And there's never been any, so far, there hasn't been, one owner has not been able to buy both lots. It's sort of a chicken and egg thing, but it just hasn't happened. And so the owners still own this lot. It's only about 16,000 square feet. The Brook, so they cannot use the Brook Road overlay zoning for the reasons that you have explained. Now we have MBTA zoning that was approved last year. So they started looking at that. They had Dennis Greenwood, their architect, try to sketch out some plans. And we're not here to talk about a plan tonight, but I do think Dennis has spent some time studying the zoning options. And if you're willing, and he's willing, he might want to explain what he sees as the most significant issues that any owner would face in trying to decide what to do with this parcel. So I know I understand your concerns, like, it isn't usual necessarily to come to the planning board first, but I've done it a number of different ways. And honestly, I'd rather get feedback at the beginning from everybody. This is a public meeting. But to know that at least the owners are trying to do something, but they haven't been able to figure out what they can do that works for them financially and so on and so forth, based on the two zoning options currently available. So you can't really go to neighbors with a proposal for something that doesn't fit the existing zoning. It's kind of, I guess if everybody gave up on doing anything with the existing zoning, they could come up with a concept. They could then go to the neighbors, which would be the usual procedure, and then go to the Board of Appeals. The Board of Appeals is not keen on writing zoning, and that's what this amounts to. So you've got these two zoning proposals. I hope the planning board looks at whether there might be modifications that could be made that would make them usable for this site. And that's enough. I've said enough. But so the owner is here. The owner has not been invisible at all. And he has been before the Board of Health since last September because there's an issue with getting the old fraternal building demolished. They've allowed a delay in order to try to work on a development plan for this site, but they're coming back before the Board of Health in September, I believe. So that issue is sort of hanging over them, but that's a demolition issue. With your permission, if Dennis Greenwood wanted to say anything, I think this might be a good time for him to weigh in with what he has been looking at or trying to figure out.
Great, yes. Please join us, yes, that would.
Excellent. Thank you, Marion. Thank you, members of the board. So as discussed, we have studied this site quite a bit over the past year or so. We've been working with Eddie Byrne, who, as Marion mentioned, is on the call. We studied the Brook Road Overlay District, and obviously did kind of dismiss that for the number of reasons that were outlined. But we did think that the townhouse wasn't an appropriate use of the site, because it's kind of a transitional parcel from the main road over to the local road. So it did seem very appropriate. So that was something we took into account. So we've studied using apartment layouts on the site and using the townhouses on the site. And obviously there's a bit of a discrepancy between in the MBTA overlay district, what the density is calling for, as outlined in the 11 kind of apartments per 30 units per acre, which comes up to 11 dwelling units versus the FAR. So obviously there's no FAR requirement in the Brook Road Overlay District, but you do have a very, very low one here with the Blue Hills Parkway Corridor. So that is the number one issue we come up against. The setbacks don't seem to be too much of an issue. That seems to work out pretty well. It really comes down to the FAR. It's kind of the limiting factor. There's also a much larger minimum open space requirement at 50%. That is a manageable piece, right? I do think that one thing that's a little more forgiving in the Blue Hills Parkway corridor, in looking at the townhouses, we're like, oh, that's a great concept. But in the Brook Road overlay, it's pretty restrictive in the size of those actual units. So it restricts it to 100 and to 1,500 square feet per unit and 2 bedrooms. And then and it has to be broken up basically into 2 buildings. It can't really be a continuous thing of row houses or townhomes. They want to break it up into multiple buildings. So that's some added cost, and also you have to have separation between the 2 buildings. and then you start to come into you can't actually fit that, you know, that number of townhomes actually on the site because of the required separation between two buildings. So it's a very interesting site, and it's kind of a you know, pieces of both are of both overlays work well, but certain pieces of each one do not work really at all, right? So with the Blue Hills Parkway corridor, which is really the only one that we currently could use at all, without going for a variance, it's really the FAR that is tremendously limiting for a feasible project on the site.
And so Dennis, what would you, what kind of FAR would you think is more, friendly towards some sort of development like you're envisioning there?
You know, I think somewhere around 1 is a bit more appropriate. We looked at 7 townhouse units on the site, as well as we looked at again, as I mentioned, we looked at apartments on the site as well. And I think actually with the apartments we ended up pretty fair as well. But with 7 townhomes, we ended up at just over 1, and we could certainly be, you know, right around that 1 line. But even just for context, the existing buildings that are there are, I think, are right around the FAR that's allowed. I think in fact, we measured it out and it's at 0.58, so it's a little bit over the allowed FAR. So there's a number of existing nonconformities here, with the way that this is written now. But typically, you know, I would think that in an overlay district, MBTA overlay district, where we're trying to foster density, I would typically see one higher than 0.5.
And so if the FAR is, sorry, if the FAR is 0.5, 7 units, that's about 1,200 per unit, give or take? Does that sound about right?
So one of the
We're-
things,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, one of the things, about our gross floor area definition from which the FAR is derived is it includes the entire building, including parking. So, when you say 1.0, Dennis, are you including a garage within the townhouse?
I was not, because there was, I think we had some correspondence on that previously, I forget with whom, but there was a little bit of a gray area, I believe, the way that was written out.
Okay, so 1.0 and not including parking is what you're.
Exclusive of, yes, correct.
And, sorry, Hal, can I just ask you one more? The existing building's total square footage, you mentioned the FAR was about 0.8, but do you have that total square footage? Oh, 0.5, that's right. 0.58, okay. So, and what is that then for square footage?
So that would be
0.58 times the property, is that what you're asking?
Yeah, so that
It's just if you had it, it's okay, if you don't, it's not.
yeah, it's around 9,500 between the two buildings.
So it's 9,500 square feet
Yeah, existing, so
existing.
if you had, if you qualified for the Brook Road, because the frontage and minimum lot size were modified, would that allow you to achieve what you're hoping to achieve? Because one of the considerations that we have is the Brook Road overlay applies to less properties than the MBTA community zoning does. So if we made a change to FAR, we'd have to try and evaluate what that impact would be upon a lot more properties. Whereas if we modified the Brook Road, it wouldn't, it would be
That's what
pretty
I-
limited. So I'm wondering if that minimum lot size were reduced to, say, 15,000 and the frontage were reduced to, let's say, 65, would there be other limiting factors?
The other limiting factors right now are the way it was written, the Brook Road overlay, was that you're limited to 2 bedrooms and 1,500 square feet per unit.
You're limited to that?
Yes.
Okay.
And the
1,500
6
square feet.
units is driven off of,
And
the 20,000 square feet?
that's not the way I read it.
Okay.
I'm open to other interpretations,
No,
obviously.
I honestly haven't read it that carefully, I'm just trying to figure out how that, what that multiplier is.
I think that's the way it's written, back in 18.
You have the zoning
If I could just add one thing, there is an affordable unit requirement in the Brook Road overlay. So you're really not talking about 6 market rate units.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you need to pay attention to that because that has a lot to do with the economics of, for the, for anybody developing the property.
Mm-hmm.
I can't give you the answers as to what, I just know that you end up paying for the affordability with the price of the other units, and that you would have 6 units, but your revenue would be coming from 5.
So, Dennis, you mentioned the townhouse because of the site and what we're thinking about transition. But since the town passed the MBTA communities, which allows for multifamily and at a higher density than what the Brook Road did, and it was approved at town meeting, it's contemplated that there could be something besides townhouses here. Have you thought about how that might impact your FAR requirement?
So to clarify, you're asking if we stayed under the Blue Hills Parkway, use a different building typology? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, just because it's allowed, I mean, that's a newer overlay. Whereas
Yeah.
the Brook Road was, as we said, 8 years ago, and it allowed only townhouses, and so that's what you were starting with. Now that you have other options available to you under the MBTA zoning, would using a different housing type help relieve some of these pressure points?
But in order to do so, you would have to contemplate adjusting FAR.
We can't change the FAR in the MBTA community zoning. We're committed to that with the state. We've had this conversation through all those meetings. Folks that came and said, oh, we can change this later, there's no changing it later.
Well, you have to get the state's approval to
Right,
change
and how
it.
likely is that?
For one piece of property.
Right.
Well, you wouldn't be doing it
I
for
just
one.
wanna-
I
just wanna make
wasn't
sure.
necessarily suggesting that, I was just.
No, I just wanna make sure for this conversation with Dennis and for his client, that we don't suggest that we can change the FAR in there, cause I think that's a long road.
And just to remind ourselves that yes, the MBTA zoning was approved at town meeting, but it was defeated at the town ballot box. So
That was different zoning though.
yeah, but it's all kind of pretty similar. I just think that, to Sean's point, it's, we really can't be changing too much of MBTA. And again, I wanna see something developed at this site.
And to your point, I think once you start changing something for MBTA, that's gonna become, you're opening sort of a can of worms with what people will say, well, there's precedent to changing,
If they need that might be something where you have to go for a variance. But I think it's just good to understand.
Yes.
For them to understand our conversation about the difficulty of
Right.
that. And for us to understand the things that they're bumping up against. And it may be that we modify the zoning such that
I think
the
the
Brook Road
overlay
is more
zoning.
attractive than.
I think that would make sense to me, and I think the typology of the housing of a townhome would be more fitting for that site as well.
Do we
That
know
would be the way
what
I
the,
would,
sorry.
okay, that's all right, I would avoid change MBTA.
Do we know the rationale behind when this was originally passed in the overlay with the requiring that they have to be 2 beds? Because what I'm hearing Dennis say is that is part of the challenge, right? Am I putting words in your mouth?
It's probably
No,
also the square footage, right?
Square
Square
footage.
footage, I mean, I would
Yeah.
imagine like A 1,400 square foot unit, right,
Yeah.
is not gonna be more than a two-bedroom unit.
No, but
So-
I'm thinking
So I
of,
think it's probably more like kind of trying to constrain sort of like the, you know, the size and sort of the density of what was gonna get built there. That could be something that you could modify as well.
I'm just thinking that seems to put yet another
Constraint.
constraint or hindrance on what could go there, right?
Right.
I mean, who are we to say necessarily, and maybe I'm gonna regret saying this, but who are we to say it has to be a one bedroom, a two bedroom, and a three bedroom, right? Shouldn't that be up to the owner and what the market needs and have diversity?
I can also say that when the Ice House zoning before the 40B was adopted, the AG's office said, said you had to, that zoning said they had to be one beds. And the AG said, no, you can't do that because it's discriminatory against families.
Right.
So,
I'm just thinking 3 beds is
you
an
can
option
do
that people would want, yeah.
In 14 or 1,500 square feet, you can definitely do 3 beds
Yeah.
in apartments, because we're seeing that as an architect,
I
I'm
just don't
seeing
think it's
that.
typical. I just don't think it's typical,
Yeah.
but of course you can. Of
I-
course you could do a tighter,
think
a
the-
tighter layout.
One of the things that I think was a factor in the Brook Road and certainly in the MBTA communities is to have a housing type that meets a little different market than the single-family homes do, so generally a little bit smaller, so they could be a little bit more naturally affordable, not naturally occurring affordable, not SHI affordable. So if these become like the same size as single-family homes, then we're not getting kind of diversity in the housing options that Milton has. So that was a factor, I believe, then, and it's certainly, I think, a factor in the MBTA communities. So, I think, limiting the bedrooms is something that, you know, I don't have a good recollection of why that was deemed appropriate, because it doesn't seem like it is appropriate. Because if a developer chose to do all one beds or all twos or some mix of ones and twos and studios, because that made sense, why should the zoning
Right.
not allow that? Because that provides more diversity in the housing, and maybe the economics would be different. So
So it's no more than 2, so you could do studio 1 and
Okay.
2, it doesn't
Okay.
want you to do 3.
okay.
I mean, it's explicitly does not want a family-sized unit.
Yeah, so I'm surprised AG didn't call this one out back then too, because.
And I
it's
thought,
discriminatory
like,
against
in our
families.
conversations, we've talked about how micro units are all the rage now, and we have visiting nurses coming in, so they want smaller units. So that's why I think going to 3 bedrooms isn't really the norm in all of our conversations that we've had. So I think kind of staying at 1 or 2 bedrooms is probably,
I think from a market standpoint, if I was a developer, 2 bedrooms would be ideal. Cause you're gonna find the people who are downsizing, they're not gonna necessarily want 3 bedroom, they're not gonna want excessively large square footage because they want the price to be lower.
Yeah.
So they want to be able to move into something that's not
Yeah.
the same price as the house they're moving out of. So I
Right.
think,
I'm not sure size necessarily
it
drives that
doesn't,
whole
well,
equation.
it's not, no, but
know
I
what I
would say
mean?
most developers, even in apartments in Milton, opt for, the majority of the apartments are 2 bedrooms.
Yeah, I would say if I could, I do think an apartment is different than a townhouse
Townhome.
for sure.
Yes,
We would
yes.
fit-
I would too.
Townhouses I do think are typically 3 bed, and there is this inherent, there's a little bit more circulation in them. So obviously, 1,400 square feet as an apartment is a huge apartment, right? 1,400 square feet as a townhouse is not, because you have vertical circulation in that too. You're not just coming off of a corridor and dumping into your apartment, right? So it is a very different typology, and I think that there is it is appropriate that a townhouse would be larger than an apartment. And I do think limiting it to 2 bedrooms is still a difficult. I still think that that's a difficult.
It is impacting the site though to have, if you're putting 6, depending on what you're putting, you're really going up against all of your setbacks. and pretty,
Yeah, so those setbacks are only set at 10 feet on all sides, which isn't
That's not a lot.
a lot.
You can barely get a tree in there.
Is there, sorry, is there a scenario where, again, I'm just throwing it out there, not saying that we need to do this, is there a way that we could, in one scenario, adopt the things that we like with the MBT overlay and apply them to the Brook Road, but improve, increase the setbacks from 10 to 20, reduce the size of the minimum lot size and the frontage, and tweak those so that we take what you all have
Right.
recently learned with MBT overlay and apply that to the Brook Road to make it more friendly to something happening, so it's not sitting there for another 10
Yeah.
years.
Yeah, so I think
Like the
that's.
one parking space, for instance.
Right, yeah,
Instead of
exactly.
two.
Exactly.
Like that would be a perfect one to pick.
This is within a half a mile of the Mattapan station and probably 3/4 of a mile from the commuter rail station. So, I mean, I would even support saying, like we're doing the MBTA communities, not have a minimum parking requirement. They can propose what they would want to have, what they think they need, but, make the parking requirement equal to what we have in the MBTA communities for this site.
But we also still have to remind everybody that we do not have overnight parking. So, and I saw a listing recently for an apartment, I forget where, and it specifically said on-street parking. And I thought to myself, yes, during the day it's on-street parking. So I thought that was sort of false advertisement.
My
And,
understanding, Maggie, is that we can't control Blue Hills Parkway.
true,
That's
yes,
DCR.
so that's, yeah.
So if that property was on the parkway,
Yeah.
then they would be able to park overnight.
Yeah, yeah, but that's, I just, I know, cause I lived on the parkway, so I parked on the parkway. So it just, but this is, most people I didn't even wanna park on the parkway, I wanted to park in my, driveway that I had access to, and when it snowed, DCR required, cars to get off the parkway, and that was challenging to find parking spots. So, that's just my concern about cars and not having enough parking. We're still a suburb, and even though we're half a mile to, a train station, because we're a suburb, most people still have cars.
Cheryl, to your point, and I'm not discounting what you said, but to your point, in your experience, an owner is going to provide parking if he feels that the people that he or she is marketing to need cars. Right, they wouldn't build this without any parking spaces, even if it is no requirement, based upon who they're trying to attract to that property.
Yeah, my experience is that an ownership situation, developers want to provide at least one parking space. In a rental, it's not necessarily the same, because not everyone in a rental has a car, if they have access to public transit. So this is where the developer, if you put a maximum of 2, and they think their market only needs 1, you're making them build twice as many parking spaces as they need. And that, I would support at least moving this down to only 1, but I see, if we have an overlay already that has no minimum and 1 maximum, why not make it consistent, so that you're making that aspect of these two the same? So for someone who's making the calculation of which is the best to use. So that's on the parking, because the open space, and then the setbacks to get a buffer, the parking's gonna take it. So you've got the 10 feet, but you're gonna be filling in the rest of it with parking
And kind of defeating the
that you may or
purpose,
may not
yeah.
need.
Dennis, in any of your analysis, my understanding is that whether it's the overlay, Brook Road overlay, or the MBTA zone, there's no retail allowed here, is that accurate?
I believe that is accurate.
So, again, just for our consideration, we've had multiple people reach out to us based upon the master plan open space and recreation meetings and send us emails about this part of town lacking any sort of community space and third space kind of, community gathering spaces. If that was allowed, if there was some sort of retail elements allowed, is that something that would be considered by this owner, do you think? And if so, is it something that this board might want to entertain to at least explore allowing for some minimal, coffee shop, community gathering space that this part of town keeps coming back to us and saying that they would like to have?
I'm texting with him right now. we we had talked about that, and there was not much interest in retail, but he's responding to me in lifetime.
Okay.
And I believe when,
And the
under our
site kind
economic,
of shares, and it shares access with the food mart,
Food
Yes.
mart, right?
yeah.
right? So it's already kind of a bit of an integrated sort of situation, kind of like organically. Because
understood, but you're not getting-
they're gonna need to maintain there's 2 or 3 parking spaces for the food mart that are on this property.
Yeah, so that was gonna be my question.
So it's already kind of organically a mixed use sort of scenario.
But the actual food mart could change, that could go all housing under MBTA.
Yeah,
So then
for
you
sure.
lose the commercial, and if we are looking at our economic development, this is one of the areas that we're looking at, so it would be nice to retain commercial space, and I'm not saying on this one lot, but in that whole kind of triangle area.
That was one of the things that I did wanna talk about when talking about West Milton, and the pre-existing non-conforming, at least at a minimum. But even here, like, does it affect anything in our approvals if either the entire Blue Hills Parkway or a section was peeled off of it just to allow mixed use? Not mandate it, cause we know we can't mandate anymore, but just to allow it.
Just, just imagine what you're talking about, right? I mean, I think specifically we're talking about asking the folks on the phone tonight if they would consider, some sort of mixed use on this property to put in some type of, let's say it's a coffee shop. What coffee shop operator is ever gonna wanna do that? There's 0 parking. You're reliant on people walking to that coffee shop. How much business is there really there? Could the guy ever survive? I mean, the ideas are great. I'd love to have a coffee shop on my street too, that I could walk to, but it's not reasonable. There are empty storefronts all over the place that could have coffee shops in vibrant areas with a lot of foot traffic, with adequate parking, and there's no coffee shops there. I mean, it's a bit of a reach to think that, someone would open up a coffee shop on a parcel of land here, or for that matter, in many other parcels of land in Milton, because it's just not gonna work. It's just not a viable business. We can create the zoning, but it'll probably be empty. I don't even know what went into the ice house. Do they have something in the ice house?
No, nothing.
It's limited to a food market. We've definitely had some calls.
Yeah.
Looking for space, and it's limited, the way that overlay was written, sort of similar to this one. It's very, very, very,
But that was
very
in the,
narrow,
that ended up being the 40B, so it would have been a condition in the 40B.
It is, and what it says in the comprehensive permit is, the zoning board sort of, there's language in there that says that, the commercial component would, refer back to the intent of the overlay.
Got it.
And it's just a food market, so we've had some interest from other types of service providers. I mean, I don't wanna get into anything because I don't, we haven't even gone anywhere with it, but people call us because they're looking for space. So,
And Sean, there are vacant storefronts. I appreciate that and understand that, but not in this part of town.
Do you think a coffee shop would survive there?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I'm saying only in the conversation that I've had with people in April and the people that reach out to us to say that, again, it's a small microcosm, I understand that, but the people that drop their kids off at Tucker and want something to do afterwards, the people that are going to church in this area and wanna be able to gather with people afterwards. I'm not saying that's, saying a business, I'm not in that line of work, but this part of town does not have those vacant storefronts.
Listen, I'm not saying that it wouldn't be great to have it and people would like it, I'm saying it's gotta be viable for
Yep.
for an operator to
Yep.
open it, and I don't see the viability there, there isn't enough foot traffic after Mass from St. Mary's, or, you can barely park over there, it's really hard, plenty of times you pull into the food mart, you might be able to jam your car in there, run in and get some milk and run out, but it's not like there's much parking, for me, I'm thinking practically, could a business owner operate a coffee shop in there, and I just don't think it'd ever happen successfully.
Yeah, I don't think it would be a coffee shop, cause, a cup of coffee goes for $4, $5, the turnover to me,
$8, $9 now.
to make the rent.
You get the oat milk and the vanilla syrup and
There's
the.
coffee in our kitchen.
I don't go out for coffee.
Oh, sorry.
There are, there are,
Oh, is
if
it,
I
I think
could,
he's still unmuted.
Yeah. Yes, Dennis?
hi, sorry. There are a couple, specific site constraints here too. So the site, if you look at it, it's a wedge, right? So we do, as we talked about, we have very little frontage, right? So there's not 66 feet of frontage.
Yeah.
You really need an anchor tenant to kind of bring something in. But we're giving some of that is existing parking for that quick mart, which we're
Right.
leaving. So if you were to put a retail tenant, really that retail tenant they need that frontage, right? So you'd eat up that frontage and kill any access to the back of the lot.
So your preference is for a townhouse style as opposed to like a one apartment building, or what's your preference?
The preference was townhouse.
Well, I think if we could, taking off what Hal said, is look at the setbacks and, maybe increase the setbacks, but reduce the bedroom requirement.
Yeah, I'd say, well, first of all, we would make the minimum lot size and the frontage usable to you. And then I'd say strike the parking requirement and the 2-bedroom restriction. The 1,500
So
square feet.
you're saying it can go up to 3 bedrooms?
I am, yeah. And the 1,500 square feet of unit is really kind of an FAR restriction, right? It's not an FAR, but it functions that way. And so, if otherwise, I think it was the open space requirement is 30% and the setbacks are 10.
Those I don't think are gonna control.
Those aren't going to control,
I don't think
no.
so. I don't think those are gonna control.
What was,
And just to note too, with the MBTA, it's a maximum of 1 unit, of 1 parking space.
Right.
It's maximum,
Not a minimum.
right? So that would be, if you wanna try to pull things from
Yeah,
that
maximum.
model,
I would say put that in as
that
a
may
max.
be something that the owner, that those folks really wanna think about, because if they're selling these, do they wanna be limited to a maximum of 1 unit per, 1 parking space per unit?
Well, this is within a half mile of the, as I said, the trolley and the bike path, and less than a mile from the commuter rail. It is one of the places that's most accessible to public transit. The bike path on the parkway is striped, and it leads you to a dedicated bikeway that you can get into Boston on. So,
but it does affect the marketability, it just, for a townhome, I think if you
If you
limit
cap it
it
at
to,
1.
if you cap it at 1, there's a lot of people who,
Well, these types of considerations would go towards towards variance, especially under the sort of the lower bar with the changes to 40A, right?
Why
So
would
it's
we
no longer
write
like substantial
zoning?
detriment, it's sort of, no, I'm just saying those would be the types of arguments that you would be able to make to sort of, the community benefit, right? Sort of like the carbon reduction from the fewer cars, that, folks would be using these other types of resources, whether it's this bike path or the public transit, you know, those would be the ways to be able to make that argument for a variance.
But if we were just to eliminate parking requirement altogether, to your point, Meredith, the market
But the
dictates it needs 2, and that's what they'll build. Or if the market dictates they need 0, then that's what they would not build. Right, I mean, rather than saying maximum 1,
I think if
no,
you're trying to get higher density through a variance, right?
through variance.
Right? Well, I'm just thinking out
A
loud,
variance would be a
right?
faster track for them to
If
go
you-
for a variance versus
Well,
our going to.
I guess what I'm saying is that some of these arguments about, you know, sort of like these other types of benefits, that is what the change in 40A envisions, right? So instead of having to make this sort of like shape, topography, whatever, like this very sort of narrow argument about why you deserve a variance, you can make these arguments, right? And you've already got affordable housing is already a component in this overlay. You know, you can make the argument about, you know, the transit-oriented development, you know, what have you. And so it's a path. You know, I don't know if that's the path that folks wanna take or whether it makes the most sense, but this overlay would need to be really amended.
Yeah, I would think if we're amending the overlay and creating new zoning, then why create another step for a variance for the property owner? Like, it shouldn't have to go to get a variance, it would all be done in the zoning.
Which is what we'd like to.
Yeah, I mean, it's, yeah, that's, absolutely, no, it's definitely a path. It's a path to write the zoning specifically for this project.
So,
I would think that might be better, and he's waited 10 years, 8 years,
if we could get this
And wait
to
till
the spring
spring.
town meeting, right?
if
One of the things that I was wondering is if, based on our conversation, and whether, I don't know whether we're at the point of kind of winding it down, but they could come back to us at a future meeting, however much time they need, and say, you know, here's kind of a concept of what we'd like to do here, here's where we're bumping up against the zoning. Design a good project. I
And they
oftentimes
have
see
one,
these
they do have a design, they do have
I
one
really don't like seeing projects that are
modify
designed to fit the zoning, but aren't a good project in some ways, you know, like they look like they were designed to fit some arbitrary, in some ways, numbers. And I'd rather see something that's thoughtfully designed for the site, because zoning can't predict
Something that would
everything
work
you're
for
gonna
them.
come back.
Yep, I agree.
And I was interested in whether you could use the MBTA because we haven't seen anything come in and what you're thinking about with it. So if you would be interested in taking a look at that as an exercise, as well as the Brook Road one, I would welcome that. It might mean somewhat a kind of a program that you don't find as interesting, but the feedback to us could be helpful.
I would think if the existing FAR is 0.58, the neighbors are comfortable with 0.58, so it could go up to 0.58. You know, right now it's what, 0.5?
That's the Parkway though, that's not the.
Parkway's 0.5.
Brook Road. The Brook Road's limited to 1,500 square feet a unit times 6, so 6,000. 9,000.
Well, yeah, so 0.58 is less than the 9,000. I think.
So they're already basically allowed.
So if you give them what's already there, that should be the starting point.
I think, yes, but I think the point is that the current overlay is 6 units at 1,500, which is greater than what's already there,
That's
Right.
but minimally.
Yeah, and that was on a lot that was 20%
20,
bigger.
yeah,
That was on a
20,000.
lot that was 20,909, this
Yeah.
lot's 4,300 feet less, it's 20% less.
That's why I'm worried about the setbacks, though.
Yeah.
Would be my-
All right, so if you said,
I mean, there is some relief in there, it's 10, but the front setback was allowed to be at least as in common with whatever was around there, or as little as 5, but I don't know that the front setback helps them at all.
yeah, so that 9,000 square feet on a 20,000 square foot lot is an FAR of 0.45. So I think that's the point maybe that Dennis was making in terms of capping it at 1,500. So if you said, okay, take away that as your cap and put FAR in as your square footage control instead of a square footage per unit. That would actually allow them to do one smaller unit and
Yeah, so
Fine.
that's what I was sort of thinking, why
Right.
don't we just tell them what the size of the building, the whole footprint can be, and then as Hal said earlier, if they wanna do,
decide.
if they wanna do one unit that's a one bedroom and another unit that's a three bedroom,
if you did.
and it looks like a townhouse style that fits into the neighborhood. You know, as long as it fits in stylistically wise to the neighborhood, as long as the whole footprint
Yeah.
doesn't exceed a certain size, what do we really care how it's broken up?
I agree, I think that.
So the 0.5 on the MBTA gave a square footage of 8,328 on the 16,665. So it's not that different from the 1,500 per unit, honestly, right? But if you said that if you wanted to take away the 1,500 and bump that up to, the FAR up to 0.6, because that's what already exists, they could test that out. Dennis, have we given you enough to think about with some design studies?
You have. I think we're gonna. I know that we're gonna find that 0.6 is still not enough, but we're happy to show you our studies, join it back, and kind of come back with all this in mind. So I do appreciate everyone's time. This was very helpful. It's nice to see kind of a pathway forward. So I think we appreciate that. And yeah, we certainly have enough to kind of, pull some stuff together and hopefully get back in front of you with some specifics.
That sounds great. Thank you all for coming tonight, I appreciate it, and let us know whenever you're ready to come back. We'd love to get you on the agenda, so.
Thank you.
All right, bye, Marion, thank
And
you.
Meredith,
Yeah,
I think, maybe just mentioning that this is not a formal application, this is, if they come
Right.
back, it's just to give
absolutely,
informal
yeah,
comment,
just
right?
conceptual
Yeah.
ideas.
But they really should reach out to their neighbors.
Great, thank you. Let's, we'll now be able to move to our next agenda. Item 6, funding for language translation services. Liz?
Yeah, so, let's see, share this. I think I have it open. So as I'm trying to get this open, it's in your packet. And the funding, the quote for the translation services came back just shy of, I think it was actually just a little bit over $500.
And this is for open space and recreation
Open space and recreation and the housing production plan.
and the housing production plan.
So, so I'm hoping that you folks, because of the time constraints we're working with, we really wanna get this moving. This vendor is under the state blanket contract, so they've been pre-vetted and they were actually recommended from MAPC because they had exhausted their funding available for this, where they were able to do the translation for the pop-ups for Avante under a different funding source. I'm hoping that you folks would be willing to use just a small part of your planning studies funding to pay for this translation. I will be more than happy to try to recoup some of it if you would like me to from the Affordable Housing Trust and or the Select Board. But again, because it's such a minor amount of funding, I think moving forward, we definitely wanna have a plan for this in our budget. So I'm definitely gonna make that recommendation for the FY 28 budget.
So it's only in Spanish, what about?
So it's Spanish, Haitian Creole, and simplified Chinese. Yeah, so those were the 3 top languages that were identified through the Language Access Plan project. And so, yeah, so we're just kind of running up against some time
And I don't-
time constraints.
necessarily have a problem with it, but I thought I heard that the health department had access to translation services.
They do, and actually, they were able to respond to us on that. There is funding through the Mass in Motion program, and they do have funding available. It was gonna take them some time to get, potentially get it signed off on. So I was kind of thinking maybe kind of hold that over here as maybe for the next bite at the apple. Because we're gonna be doing economic development planning, I would like them to, I personally, I think we should have it across the board, that's my personal opinion. There's a traffic calming master plan process, there are multiple planning processes. So I'd like to just kind of continue to pursue this and just sort of make it sort of the typical, standard operating procedure.
Yeah, and so I kind of was thinking that, so I kind of like Googled a little bit to see how other towns handled the translation services, and it said it typically comes from the town administrator and select board, under town clerk or human resources under their DEI office. So I didn't really come across that it comes from planning, and again, it's such a small amount, so I'm just like trying to say like moving forward, are we
Yes.
setting a precedent that we are gonna be having to increase our planning budget for bigger projects where I think it should be coming from like the town administrator's budget.
Yeah, that's where I'm at too. I have no issue with this. If we were voting on this, I would say approve it.
Yeah.
But as an entity, the town shouldn't rely on individual budgets within the town to be funding. I mean, it's kind of silly that the planning board is gonna decide whether or not we're gonna provide this, you know what I mean? The town should make a commitment, they should fund it from a fund that the town should have, not individual boards and departments. That doesn't make any sense at all. But as far as what you provided for us tonight to review, I'm happy to, vote on it. But
Is that a motion?
I'd make a motion to approve.
It's, to your point, it seems inefficient to do this
Yeah,
per
right,
per project, per poster,
Per board.
right?
I
Like
mean,
it should
it's
just
not-
be,
The town should take responsibility for this and say, as a town, we're gonna pay for and wherever it comes from. So I don't think it's really, I don't think it's an efficient way to do it. Hell, I agree with the whole.
Before we vote, I bet the schools translate and
Yes, that's what,
I would be curious how if that comes out of their funding. But I think it's really important that this be done and it be done in the timeframe that we have, so I think we should definitely move forward with it. And I'd like the fact that you wanna make it part of standing operating procedure, because it's really important we've seen that people in recent studies, like the community health assessment, there's people, or languages are very important things in English. So we want to encourage as much participation as we can.
so is that a second?
It's helpful.
Yes.
I thought there was a second already.
No.
No, I'm
Was it
sorry, a
motion?
second.
Second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Right. Yeah, but that's a good, to follow up on that and try to see something townwide. Okay, then the last item we have is the East Milton Fire Station proposals. There were 3 different proposals that came in. And just wondering, we thought we would just talk about it. I don't know if we wanna send a formal letter of any kind. It's,
Miranda,
I'll
can I ask a
understand.
question
Yeah,
before we
yeah.
dive into what we wanna do then? Do you know if they're going to interview, if the select board's going to do any interviews?
yes, on Monday,
Oh, they are on Monday.
August 31st.
All right, should we watch those before we just make a decision about a recommendation?
That would maybe make sense.
well, when are they gonna vote? Are we gonna have a meeting before they vote?
My understanding is they're gonna they're gonna have those interviews, they're gonna score it, have public outreach, and then,
So there'll be time for.
Yeah.
public
Okay,
outreach.
so is the public outreach intended to like for a planning board too? Is it more like East Milton Neighborhood
community rather than-
Association or? Well, I definitely want us to give them our feedback, but I'm wondering if we should wait for a vote on a content of a letter until after the interviews.
Yeah, and I just wouldn't wanna miss the opportunity, that's the correct process, but I wouldn't, when are they
Yeah.
meeting, what's their schedule like? Does it align with ours?
Is that your understanding, Liz, that there will be some public outreach following the interviews?
I wasn't aware of the August 31st date. So that's
they're
Monday.
interviewing all three,
Monday.
yeah.
And
that's-
is there like a posted agenda for that?
Is it a
There must
Zoom?
be.
I don't, I was, well, I assume that it's on Zoom, but I think it was in person.
Yeah, let's see, is it listed as a public meeting?
Yeah.
Or is it just a town staff meeting?
I thought it was all,
Yeah, it would have to be
Yeah.
posted.
Yeah.
So the 31st, there's a selectmen's meeting.
Oh. 7 PM,
I can-
yeah,
You finding it?
yeah.
Okay, never mind.
There is a select board
At
meeting Monday.
4:30,
Fourth, okay.
4:31.
Select board will invite 3 proposers to interview the select board at a meeting on August 31st at 7 PM. Following
At 7,
interviews,
oh, it was posted at 4.
the select board will evaluate 3 proposers based upon their proposals and interviews.
All right, so
Presentation.
definitely wanna.
I think
we
we
should
should
watch
do that,
those.
yeah,
I'd be
so
interested in
7 on
seeing
Monday.
Yeah, it doesn't say they're gonna vote on it. So if they are meeting on the 31st, when's our next meeting?
10th.
Again, my understanding through conversations with individual members was that they will have this and then there will be a public outreach in some capacity to gauge what the public wants.
So it sounds like we have time, but we should confirm.
So what, would they usually meet on a Tuesday, the selectmen?
Yes,
So do they have a meeting on the 8th, which is before our 10th? Would they be voting it on the 8th?
not if they're
Doesn't
doing
give
a
them
public
time for
outreach.
public
That's not-
outreach.
That's not my understanding of what they've discussed.
So maybe you could, Liz, say, we're not taking a position until after the public forum, so encourage them not to have a vote on it before they hear from us.
And if there's a vote planned before the 10th, I could always,
You could
I could
always
always,
call a
I could
meeting.
gather,
We
I
could
could
call a
gather,
meeting.
gather
Yeah.
individual comments if you wanted me to do that.
Okay.
I think that sounds good.
That sounds good, yeah.
Okay.
I had prepared a really nice presentation that I was gonna show. Could I just show a couple slides just to set the table? It'll be quick.
Sure.
Is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you submitting a proposal?
Yeah.
I think you missed the deadline.
How do I get a panelist?
Oh, you're not hang on a second.
Yeah,
I just have to promote you, I think.
This is a few slides.
You're signed into the webinar?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Hal.
It'll be quick.
No, that's,
So, since I was not on the board when a lot of this stuff happened, I wanted to go back and look at what's been done in East Milton to date. I know that this board recently completed the overlay through a lot of public outreach, but I also know there are elements before that, and so in an effort to educate myself and to try to be consistent with what we've done as a town and a board previously, I guess I should share my preamble that I'm giving. Right, so what I came across was this, studying this area and this particular site is not a new idea, right? The 2015 master plan addressed it, the 2019 Urban Land Institute Technical Assistant Panel, the 2021 Visioning Planning Session, and then the 2025 Overlay all studied East Milton. And you'll see it specifically kind of addressing And these, I just tried to take some quotes directly from those, just, you know, I know that the interview's on Monday and we'll wait for the larger discussion, but, you know, way back in 2015, that master plan talked about identifying East Milton Square specifically and adding additional retail, dining, pocket parks, and streetscape improvements. You know, working with the pedestrian environment and specifically reusing the historic fire station for community use or private development such as a restaurant. 2019, the Urban Land Institute Technical Assistant Panel, it isn't just about the building, but the relationships between the building, the sidewalk, public spaces, and the people. So talking about commercial retail and encouraging new construction renovations of existing buildings, incorporating seating and benches and public art to connect shopping and dining experiences and preserving the community character, such as the firehouse, should be contemplated for new development. 2021, the visioning planning, which was with the Barrett Group perhaps, Cheryl?
Yes.
You know, comfortable walking for a place to go during counter businesses along the sidewalk, sit outside, foster active pedestrian-oriented mixed-use development, and to fill in the gaps with existing buildings to create more consistent and lively edge along sidewalks. And finally, this board, and I believe all four, you know, passed the East Milton zoning overlay with, requires high percentage of glazing along the street front. I think it's 60% active. You know, building design shall lay out and define street frontage occupying the street edge with active ground floor, transparent ground floor facades, and specifically calling out atoms and granite to include businesses and entryways, displays, and other glazing elements. You know, I think that as we consider this going forward, it was helpful to me to go back and look at those things to kind of educate and inform the decisions that the town will make, so.
That's great.
So I think, Hal, maybe you should share that with the select board too, because a lot, I mean, the background, because they weren't involved in any of that planning. I don't think the current members.
And things have changed though, also in East Milton Square, you know, we've got a lot of development there, so, a lot of that has already started. We have restaurants now that we didn't have back in 2015, so we've already accomplished a lot of the things that was stated.
We also have a lot of residential that we didn't have.
Yeah.
I mean, back, if you go all the way back to the beginning, it was 15, I think that was 15 where you started. I don't think the idea of having a 90-unit residential building.
No,
Yeah.
no,
So-
no,
so-
very true. And from a planning perspective, I think that what you guys did with the 2025 overlay and the guidelines is great, and that had, to my understanding, that had a lot of community engagement, right? There were a lot of meetings with the East Milton Neighborhood Association to understand what
I
they,
think the relative term is a lot, you know, I mean, yes, some people came out, but what is a lot anymore? And I mean, that's true for any kind of community engagement, I mean, down at, we might have had 40 people there, I don't know, what do you think, 50 people?
It filled the Milton Arts Center, I'd say.
It's a small building though, I mean, for a community as big as Milton is, we don't hear from as many people as we would like to hear from. So when I only say that in response to a lot, I just don't even know what a lot is anymore, you know, it's not enough.
poor word choice.
No, it isn't, cause we say it all the time, I'm not blaming you at all for the word choice, I think anybody would say that if we filled most of the seats in there, yeah, we had a lot of people, but, you know, East Milton is a huge community, and not many people come out and express their points of view, that's just unfortunate.
And it's usually the same faces
Yeah,
Well,
at every single meeting.
what I would say is there were lots of opportunities for people to express their ideas and their opinions in East Milton. And as I've said before, there've been very few opportunities in other parts of town. Like West Milton, like they've tried to reach out and they want to be heard and they want to have more planning efforts. But
They are also meeting on August 31st, the West Milton.
That's why I'm
Okay.
encouraging this Brook Road overlay to reach out to their neighbors.
yeah, so, well, the West Milton Neighborhood Association, I'm sure would be, I don't know if they're still watching, Marion Dennis and others, if they were watching too, but the West Milton neighborhood, I think Hal brought up a good point about mixed use, just, I mean, that is something that the neighborhood is interested in, and so reaching out to the neighborhood association, they would hear that too. But back to Hal's point about East Milton, I've been involved in in all of those plans that Hal talked about. And, you know, what I would say is, even the 90-unit 40B, I was involved in going to East Milton Neighborhood Association meetings. I was on the board. The board was asked to do the overlay as urgently following what happened with that property. And that they didn't want to negotiate with every owner on every property each time. It was exhausting. So we did a lot of work for that community to be able to craft that overlay. I think you would agree, Meredith, and to craft those guidelines. And so that should be the first place. I do agree with you, Hal. That's the first place to look. And the 2015 said more studies should be done. That's what led to the Urban Land Institute Technical Assistance Panel. That's what led to the Barrett work. That's what led to the overlay. It was a continuation of each one was built upon the other. And so the good place to go now is the most recent one because it built on those prior studies. And it has the most recent community input, which, you know, to the extent that we gauge whether it's sufficient or not, we can only do our best to make the opportunities available to the public, and if they take advantage of it, if they don't take advantage of it, then there's not much, I don't know how you force people to take advantage of the opportunities. They can write us, they can call into the meetings, they can attend the meetings, and they could go to those forums. And they had surveys they could fill out. I mean, there's a point at which you have to question, is there anything else left to do? And I think we asked those questions during the process.
And the neighborhood association has been sending out emails, I just received one recently that, you know, telling people that this is going on and they should reach out, so hopefully it's more than 40 or 50 people next time we have that meeting.
They have the opportunity.
Yep.
Well,
They
I
do.
look forward to watching those interviews. I think it's gonna be a very hard decision because one of the concepts, which is a great concept, unfortunately, the offer is from the person who's building the 90 units and is really devastated the look of East Milton Square.
But also at the Milton Arts Center, they all wanted to keep it.
Yeah.
So to me, it doesn't matter at this point in time what the use is, it comes down to retaining ownership. So the town could retain ownership and then still do a great something else. So I think,
Which was clearly,
I
what was
think they're jumping the gun. I think they need to decide if they're gonna retain ownership or not.
that's gonna be.
Well,
what
they
it's-
also don't have to accept any of the
Yeah.
proposals. And, you know, I think we asked for some input into the RFP, which, you know, we don't think was considered in terms of.
It was not considered, it was ignored.
But, you know, one of the things I would say is, you know, crafting something in an RFP where you're going to get the kind of responses that you're looking for is really important. And if you do sell it, and you don't put any restriction on what it's a commercial use and you don't know who the tenant's gonna be, well, is it the kind of use that you really wanted to see? How do you kind of get some assurance or guarantee of some sort that you're going to get that active use and not some other kind of use? So it seems to me is it in the agreement once it's submitted? Like, to me, it was, we have an idea of the kind of tenant, but it's not a tenant. You know, it's different if the tenant submitted. So, or as a co-submitter with the developer. So I still have questions about, you know, whether the question is one of these three, or whether the question is, should we think about this again? And I'd like for us to talk about that too.
Yeah.
And most of the businesses down there are just tenants. They don't own the buildings. So it's, I don't know why the town of Milton can't retain ownership and then have a tenant in there.
The
Because
town
that's,
can't afford to fix that up.
I'm not saying the town has to fix it up. A lot of times the tenants are responsible for the build outs. So I don't,
Build outs, yes, but if it's core.
Or shell, no one's gonna, yeah.
Core and shell, as it's called in our
Sorry,
business.
that's jargon.
Yeah. The core and shell is usually on the landlord. And unless there's something that's a really, really long lease in which they're able to I don't know, recoup that back out. But if you're a tenant for 5 years, you're not gonna pay for the new roof and the new windows and the repointing of the brick, there's just no way, isn't, the numbers just won't work.
Well, one of the proposals, and you guys probably saw it, and I think the town should just be careful, it did indicate that the entity that submitted that proposal would look for assistance from the town with respect to the infrastructure. So, I'm not sure what that means, but that needs definition, because
Well, this is one of the things I said when one of our comments on the RFP was, I felt the town should do some due diligence on the infrastructure, on the condition of the building, you know, because you're gonna get better, I should say better, but I think I said this before. If you're the coffee shop owner, you're not in the business of knowing a lot about the overall renovation of that building, but if that was done for you and you knew what you were getting into, if you will, then you can make a better informed decision. So I think the only people you're going to get with the information that's available as is are developers. You know, I think unless it's somebody who's a chain kind of place that has a facilities group within their
We
organization,
don't wanna change.
no. So,
And infrastructure is really important because I believe one of the articles on the warrant is for the town to spend money for infrastructure on Bassett and Franklin.
Not just to repair it though,
So
to replace it that's old.
yeah, so I don't know how the 90 unit is affecting all of that, but I just think we haven't ever studied our infrastructures. The whole systems, I think we've asked the questions all throughout MBTA zoning, and we've never had a complete analysis of our water capacity. My understanding there's, water capacity issues at one of the 40Bs, but, so I just don't think we're prepared. We don't have a full analysis how it's going to affect the town,
Hopefully the engineering department is,
now understaffed.
I'm just looking at. All right, I think that's good, I think that's a plan, we'll defer that, our discussion until that evening. So I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second,
second,
all in favor?
aye.
Aye.